It all started on a night when my world should have been peaceful, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. My nephew, the one I'd always seen as shy, reserved even, surprised me in ways I never expected, leaving me questioning every boundary I thought I had. I came home from a party, the room spinning and my thoughts hazy. The house was quiet except for the faint glow of a light from the living room. As I stumbled in, there he was, sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone. His presence was steady, grounding, and yet, something about the way he looked at me that night was different. It was as though he could see right through me. I dropped my keys on the table and collapsed onto the chair across from him. "You're still up?" I asked, my words slurring slightly. He looked up, his eyes meeting mine with an intensity I hadn't noticed before. "I wanted to make sure you got home safe," he said, his voice steady, calm. There was something in his tone that made my pulse quicken. I brushed it off, blaming the alcohol, but I couldn't ignore the way his gaze lingered. "That's sweet of you," I replied, leaning back and closing my eyes. The room felt like it was spinning, and I laughed softly at the absurdity of it all. "I might need some help, though." "With what?" he asked, his voice low, cautious. I opened my eyes and looked at him, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "I need someone to take care of me tonight." The moment the words left my mouth, the air between us shifted. His expression changed, not shocked, but something deeper, something that sent a shiver down my spine. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. There was hesitation in his tone, but also something else, something that made my heart race. I nodded, unable to speak. The tension in the room was palpable, every second stretching into an eternity. He stood, crossing the room to stand in front of me. "Tell me what you need," he said, his voice steady but filled with an intensity that made my breath catch. What followed was a night that blurred the lines between right and wrong, a night where every boundary I had ever set seemed to vanish. He was gentle but firm, his confidence surprising and utterly disarming. Every moment felt like a test, a challenge, and yet I couldn't bring myself to stop. I'd like to say I hesitated, that I questioned my actions, but the truth is, I didn't. The connection between us was undeniable, magnetic, and completely out of my control. He saw parts of me I had long buried, and instead of turning away, he embraced them. The hours passed in a haze of emotions I couldn't begin to describe. It was intense, overwhelming, and unlike anything I had ever experienced. By the time the first light of dawn seeped through the curtains, I was left reeling. The house was quiet again, but everything had changed. I sat on the edge of my bed, my thoughts racing. What had I done? What had we done? The weight of the night's events pressed down on me, and yet I couldn't bring myself to regret it. He had awakened something in me, something I didn't even know was there. He knocked softly on the door before entering, his expression unreadable. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice gentle, concerned. I nodded, unable to meet his eyes. I don't know what to say." "Then don't," he replied, sitting beside me. "We don't have to figure it all out right now." His presence was calming, reassuring, and for the first time in hours, I felt a sense of peace. The day stretched on, but the memories of the night lingered, a constant reminder of the lines we had crossed. I knew things could never go back to the way they were, but I also knew that what had happened between us was something I could never forget. He had seen me in my most vulnerable state, and instead of turning away, he had stepped closer. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once, and though I didn't know what the future held, one thing was certain: my life would never be the same again.